Yeah, on.
Two twins. Oh yeah. OT. Maybe today's episode I should go, yeah. As high as I can go.
We're doing back-to-back Nubs here. This is a good couple weeks for all you Nubs fans out there, which is probably most of you.
Too much Nubs.
And I sound a little different. I'm traveling. Our special guest, we want to make sure to accommodate his schedule. So we're doing this with me, probably not sounding as quality, but Nubs, it's the substance that counts.
Are you saying that you're a traveler in time currently?
I'm in the field right now. That's what I'm doing.
Traveler in time. This is going to be a good one, T.
Oh, yeah.
I get to talk to one of my favorite musicians today. And Mick, I have to apologize. I've gone all fanboy. I've got the T-shirt on and all that. I hope that's okay.
Man, I thought that when I saw you come up on my screen. I thought, happy days.
Love it. But we are so honored and thankful that Mick Box will be joining us here on this episode of Two Twins and an Album. Mick, thank you so much. What an honor and pleasure. You are the longstanding original member of Uriah Heep. I mean, you made it through all the trials and tribulations.
52 years and counting. So onward and upward, as they say.
It's absolutely incredible. 52 years. And Mick, I have to start just by saying that you look fantastic. I just have to say that. I don't know your age. I don't need to know your age. But Mick, if I look like you and I'm your age, I will be a happy camper. What's the secret? What is the secret, Mick?
I've always had a positive outlook on life, and I have never taken life too seriously, although, of course, I take my music seriously. But, I tend to keep an air of positivity about everything I do and get involved in. And I think that stands you in good stead, And don't believe all the accolades that come your way, if they do come your way,
Absolutely. Yeah, when people start saying nice things about you, look out,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've seen lots of other people fall by the wayside with that one, and that's just not my game at all. I didn't come in the music business for that at all.
If I would have gone back to the 1972 Mick Box and said, in 2022, you would be the remaining original member, but Uriah Heep would remain active for all these decades because, we're going to talk about demons and wizards today, but 80s were prolific for you. The 90s were prolific for you and well into the 2000s. And I'm sure without all the COVID nonsense, you guys would still be on the road doing your thing. But what would the young Mick Box say if I said, hey, you'd still be going strong today?
He'd be sitting there with his mouth open in awe. It's one of those things that you don't know what longevity is going to be in anything you do. I mean, all we were doing at the time was immersing ourselves in the 70s revolution that was coming out of England at the time, because it came from an era of the late 60s where it was all, bands playing with little combos and all wearing suits and doing dance moves and very sweet songs and harmonies. And then we came out with the likes of Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Uriah, and we blew that out the water. We had the long hair that we still got today, thank goodness. The bell bottoms, the stack shoes, the Marshall cabinets, amplifiers behind you. You had your own Skyline, and it was all big, louder, and better, and everything. So it was a very creative time, and the industry then was quite supportive because when you signed an album deal, you usually signed for 6 or 7 albums, and you grew with it, the label, and they grew with you. And so it was a great time for that creative. And I think it's why all that great music came out in that period.
We're going to talk a lot about demons and wizards, and we look forward to that. And we'll get in our little time machine. But for now, we like to do a segment here on the show called Round and Round, which is where we check out what each other are listening to. And people get sick of hearing from us. So we're looking forward to hearing what you listen to. Let's go round and round, and let's start with you, Mick Box. What are 3 albums that you've been listening to of late that you've been enjoying?
Lordy, that's a question. It's not a question you should ask a Gemini. I'll give you an answer now. In 5 minutes, it will be different. But probably Jeff Beck Truth, which is one of my all-time favourite albums. I usually have that on some part of the day or week. And that's a very important album for me because that's when I first heard Jeff Beck using the wah-wah, which has, of course, become now my signature sound. And so that was my introduction to that. And he made the guitar talk. It's just a fantastic album. You've got, Rod Stewart singing, and my word, he didn't sing any better. He never bettered that, but then he done since. May have had more success, but his vocals on that is marvellous. And of course, Ronnie Wood from the Stones on bass, not guitar, So it's a great album. Wanganui Dogs, their first album, with Richie Kotzen and Paul Kenny on drums.
Love that record. And Billy Sheehan on bass.
Billy Sheehan, of course, yeah. Who was a big Heep fan as well, yeah. And we toured, did quite a few festivals in Europe with them, and Billy was always on our bus.
Nice.
Where the fun was.
yeah. The Uriah Heep bus is always where the fun was, right?
Recently, I actually put on Deep Purple in rock.
Oh, it's so good.
And it's just a great album, It really is. It's they're at their peak there, It's a fantastic, great playing, great songs, great performances.
I was thinking earlier about who are Uriah Heep's peers? Because one of the things we'll talk about is you guys touch so many different areas. I mean, I've seen you in metal documentaries and prog documentaries, classic rock documentaries. But if there was one peer I would say that I could point to, I think I would say Purple. The longevity, the various kind of twists and turns, the lineup changes.
Well, it's a really funny thing because back in the day, there was a place in London called the Hamwell Community Centre that was a rehearsal hall, but it was two halls. And there was Deep Purple in one and us in the other at the time. It was a hell of a racket, but we got some great music come out of there.
I bet. Yeah, gosh, to be a fly on the wall for that, that'd be pretty amazing.
I mean, Blackmore was just, other world. He was fantastic,
Yeah.
Playing off with Lordy was great, and Basie on the drums, and Roger Glover just solid. I mean, it was a great line. I mean, Paul C. and Gillan, King of the Screams at the time, wasn't he? He'd get up there.
Sure was, but we'll talk a little bit about another King of the Screams with David Byron, right? We'll get to that for sure.
Yeah, they were kind of going neck and neck, weren't they, at the time?
Absolutely, I would say so. T, tell us what's running around for you, T. What do we got?
Yeah, hey boys, I've been getting ready to get my sort of rock on a little bit here, getting ready for Mick. I revisited Sabbath Volume 4 a little bit because why not?
Good man.
Never a bad time for that, right? In addition to that, I've gone with a little country music of Jerry Jeff Walker. My favorite song is "Pissin' in the Wind." Mick, if you haven't checked that one out, do so. It's a classic.
You don't try it.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't try it at home, right?
Yeah. You got to have waterproof trousers and a jacket on for that one, mate. I tell you.
Totally. And then lastly, cooling off from the Sabbath Volume 4 with a little, something nice and easy, a little Steely Dan doing "Can't Buy a Thrill." That's what's there it plays right there. Yeah.
That guitar solo on there is just stupendous. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Is that Skunk Baxter?
Yeah, it should be.
It sure sounds like him, yeah.
More about it's his style for sure. So yeah, we'll give it to him. But there was another guitarist, Elliot Randall, I think it was, who did a lot of sessions around that time. So who knows? Yeah,
some decent musicianship there with Steely Dan. So, gents, that's what's been going on round and round for me. Nub, how about you?
Cool. Spinning around for me is first and foremost two new albums. I'm actually going to do a repeat round and round, T, because I can't mislead the listeners. I have been listening to the new Yes album, The Quest, just nonstop for the last couple of weeks. It's better and better every time I listen to it. I'm really enjoying it. It's the best thing that Yes has put out for a long time. Songwriting's really thoughtful, some epic stuff. I just love it. It's everything I love about Yes. Mick, you should know I'm a prog nerd through and through. So there you go.
I will give it a listen now. Yeah, I haven't heard it yet.
It's very good. You should check it out. I think you'll like it. Second, another new record. This is from Fear Factory, a little bit of metal for me. Aggression Continuum, really strong melodies, good heavy stuff from Fear Factory. And then lastly is it's funny to call this album newer, but it feels newer because it's Cheap Trick, but it's 1994. And it is the Woke Up with a Monster album, kind of an underrated record from the 90s from Cheap Trick. Really heavy, great title track, and really been enjoying that one.
Love Cheap Trick. Yeah, that's a great album. That is, that one. Yeah,
for sure. So,
I had that in my car for a long while.
Nice. Yeah, good driving album. That's a good call, Mick. Good driving album. Well, let's get into Demons and Wizards here as we get into the nerdy deets. So let's roll the nerdy deets done dirt cheap.
You want some dirty deeds? Yeah. You want some dirty deeds?
So Demons and Wizards, it was the fourth studio album from Uriah Heep. It was released on May 19th of 1972. It came out on Bronze Records in the UK, Mercury Records in the US. So we're talking about very major label stuff here. The cover art is something I definitely want to talk about, Mick. I already mentioned Yes. I'm a huge Yes fan, and I'm a gigantic Roger Dean fan. And you guys got Roger Dean to do this sleeve and the Magician's Birthday sleeve kind of right in his just perfect creative heart.
I think he was still an art student graduate in Southend on the coast of England. And we invited him up to the studio to hear what we were doing. And then he went away and developed the iconic, beautiful cover that he did, and once we saw it, we were just blown away.
Yeah, it's a spectacular cover. It really is. And it's so, like you said, iconic. It's married with the album. You just wouldn't have the record without that imagery for sure.
The first time that we actually, had the artwork and audio in sync, they both went together so well, and I think it's the first time we actually hit on that magical thing that you strive for every time, but you don't always get. But that worked that time, big time.
You certainly the Look at Yourself sleeve is another one that's so iconic because of the mirror. But I agree, this one, the imagery is so united with the music. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
2 singles from Demons and Wizards. Actually, the first one was The Wizard, which I would have guessed it's the other one came first. But in March of 1972, The Wizard. We'll get to my gloating and adoration of The Wizard when we get to track by track. And then second was the hit single Easy Livin', which was actually released in July. So Mick, a few months in between those two. Was Easy Livin', I mean, we'll talk about it more in track by track, but it seems like that was the obvious hit, yet it was the second single. Do you recall how that came about?
Probably from the record company more than anything. They were driving things along. We were too busy making the thing. We were in the art form of it all, and I guess they just saw that it was the right thing for the market. We had no argument against that because it was a great song anyway. So, I mean, whether it's played acoustic or it's full on, heavy metal, it doesn't matter. The song always wins. Song's the king, and The Wizard was a great song.
Absolutely. Let's run through the personnel because Uriah Heep is one of those bands that had lots of lineup changes, but many would say this is the, what do you call a classic lineup? David Byron on lead vocals, of course, Mick Box, who we're honored to have on lead guitar, Ken Hensley, a very key part of the band on keyboards, background vocals, some guitar, some percussions. And then there was kind of a makeover, wasn't there, in the rhythm section? You had Gary Thane and Mark Clark both playing bass on various parts of the albums, and then Lee Kerslake on drums and percussion. But do you consider this kind of the classic lineup, Mick, or where does this lineup fit into the many lineups that you've played in?
I think that if you ask the fans, they'd say yes. And of course, we attained great success with that lineup, on the world stage, if you like, and we started getting the gold albums come through the door and stuff like that. So it was a magical time, yeah.
Hey, Mick, I wanted to get your quick thoughts on Gary in particular. I know you brought him in. I think the sessions maybe had already started. And his style seemed to be just a perfect fit for Demons and Wizards in terms of making a lot of the progressions more melodic, a lot of the sort of walking up and down style that he has. Do you feel like bringing him on board really sort of boosted what was already obviously a great start to those sessions for Demons and Wizards?
I think the combination of Gary and Lee on drums was just immense. It was, we felt that we had the engine room that we've been looking for all this time, and it just took off. As you say, Gary had a very unique style. Lots of bass players at the time were just playing root note stuff, and he was the walking bass player, and he melodic lines, but it never once interfered with the lead vocal, which was just amazing. It always just fit like a jigsaw puzzle. He just had that knack, and once we had those two involved, we knew we were on to a winner.
Absolutely. So that's the personnel and the background on it. It was undoubtedly a hit album. It reached the top 30 in many countries, including the US. It was peaked at number 23 on the Billboard 200, number 20 on the UK albums chart, but it really took off in a few countries, most notably Finland. Mick, you guys became like gigantic there. It hit number 1. Was that something that, kind of took you by surprise, or was that a market that was ready for something like Uriah Heep? Or
well, prior to the release of the album, we'd obviously worked the market quite often, Finland. So Scandinavia was always a big market for Uriah Heep. So, we got Finland, Norway, Sweden. It was all part of that whole thing, yeah. So it didn't really surprise us, but any success of that level takes you back a bit.
For sure. And it hit gold in the US. So Mick, that begs the question, where is your gold record? Is it in a closet somewhere? Or is it, posted on the wall somewhere? Where is your gold record?
I've got a whole floor of it downstairs, and I've got a load up bit. I've got them up the hallway. There's loads of them. They look lovely. They're fantastic until you get somebody to come around to do something on your house, and they look at them and the price doubles.
Right. Exactly. That's a good point.
So I try to sell them they're just dinner plates, but it doesn't wash.
One of the things that's cool, I mean, obviously, when we get into it, we'll talk further about the influence of the record. But one of the things that jumped out to me was the influence that this had on Randy Rhoads. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but he's noted that, this record really guided a lot of the composition and a lot of the work that he eventually would bring to the table for Ozzy. So, it's been very cool over the years. And I'm not sure if there's been anything notable that you've heard about, or any other musicians that you've talked to that have come out of the woodwork to say that, Demons and Wizards was a big deal to kind of the way they viewed the album or those type of things. But I'm sure that's happened from time to time along your career.
Yeah, I mean, we've had those sort of accolades put to us. A lot of the German bands like Blind Guardian, very influenced by everything we did. Hansi, the singer, he was a big Heep fan, he loved it. And they actually picked up the baton and carried it on when we stopped afterwards, his birthday, with that fantasy feeling that we had, direction that we had. But, it's been quite diverse. There's people like Morten Harket from Aha.
Yeah.
It is very vocal about it. Just recently, Ghost, the lead singer from Ghost, the writer.
I can see the influence there for sure.
He's right. Yeah. He loved all the melodies. King Diamond, another of that sort of genre. And it's been so many over the years. It's been really lovely. That you've actually touched people like that.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of bands and artists have something that over time, and especially over such a long period of time, have something that has been cited by, to your point, so many different, it's not like just the metal guys like it, or just the, you mentioned Aha, a great band, by the way, who's still at it, which is amazing.
Yeah.
This is something that appealed to a lot of different tastes and a lot of different, musicians that were looking for directionally what to do with an album or what to do kind of atmospherically. And that's got to be cool. And that's got to be gratifying. There are a lot of musicians and artists that spend decades in this business and can't ever get to the point where they have a record that, has proven to be so influential. So that's got to be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even Opeth on another genre, it's just incredible how wide that influence has become, It's not just, other bands like us, it's diverse. It's pop to metal to death metal to everything, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, Mick, now you're speaking my language with Opeth. Here we go. You're getting into my wheelhouse here now. I love it.
I love it. Love it.
Michael's just amazing. He's so great.
Yeah, in fact, he did a thing for Classic Rock magazine over in England. And one of the things they do is they take you into a vinyl shop and you choose your favorite vinyl and then have a picture taken. And of course, he's there and he's got Demons and Wizards. So nice, isn't it?
Love it. That's great. Well, Mick, now we enter the wondrous stories. This is where T and I will share with you our Uriah Heep story. This is, the beginnings of how we got into the band and how we got into the album. for T and I as twin brothers here, I have a feeling that our Wonder story revolves around one night at the Palace of Auburn Hills. And Mick, I can't wait to just see if you've played so many gigs in your life. There's no way you remember the gig, but I do want to know how much you remember the tour. But it revolves around my first Uriah Heep experience and who was the first band, Tia? Was it Poco? I can't remember.
Was it Wishbone Ash? Was it the Total Recall?
Wishbone Ash. That's what, yes. It was
Wishbone Ash. That's right.
I remember that very well. Yeah.
That's right.
It was a run that came through it. And we're, in Detroit, Michigan. It came through the Palace of Auburn Hills. And it was the first time where I saw four just classic great bands sandwiched into one night. And it was one after another. And it was an amazing night. T, you remember it, right?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. So what were we, 13 maybe?
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
And we had this really cool mom who take us to shows and, all that. And I remember not knowing a lot about, I knew Nazareth had the Son of the Bitch song.
Yeah.
Right. And I knew that, Blue Oyster Cult, actually, this was before the cowbell thing. So, So Burnin' For You was actually the song that I knew best from them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Didn't yet know a lot about you guys. I'm not sure if we saw all of Wishbone Ash, but we definitely saw all of Uriah Heep. And I remember it was like, whoa, like this is cool. This is like kind of groovy, but heavy and kind of, takes you in different, sort of weaves you into different directions. And it was like, this is good stuff. And then I believe that Blue Oyster Cult played after you guys, and then Nazareth played last. And they did like an 18-minute version of Hair of the Dog, right? And got the crowd singing and all that. It wasn't really, and that was really the first experience with you guys. And it was a big arena show. I mean, it was cool. It was very, very rock and roll.
Kids, yeah.
But honestly, I didn't really dig hard into Demons and Wizards until probably like 10 years ago. And my brother here, who the self-proclaimed prog metal, lots of different kinds of metal, finally said to me, like, man, like, you got to revisit this record. And I did. And it was one of those, like, damn, I'm kind of mad I didn't do this earlier. Right. In fact, recently we do an album of the year every year. And we do an episode about that. And just this past year, my album of the year was the latest record from Andrew WK. And I actually noted, this was long before we knew we were going to get the opportunity to hang out with you. I actually noted that the one thing that I can really parlay it with in terms of sound and feel is Demons and Wizards. And it's called God is Partying, if you haven't heard it. But the vocals are very operatic. He's an interesting vocalist, but musically, the sort of sweeping nature of it and the whimsical nature of it at times, and the instrumentation and layering in these things just reminded me so much of that record. So while I couldn't, while I was negative, 20 years old when the album came out, I did name an album of the year in 2021 that reminded me big time of Demons and Wizards. So I thank you, because the best thing you can discover are these albums that, came out a while ago, but you got to them sort of late in the party, and they become sort of an important part of your appreciation and those type of things.
There's always these discoveries to be made, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. And that album to me is really more of an experience than it is a collection of songs. And it starts, you guys touched on the album cover, sort of the imagery. And again, just the whole thing to me is very whimsical in a cool kind of, rock and roll way. Yeah. And to me, those are the special records, or the ones that you kind of feel that they're an experience top to bottom, rather than taking a bunch of songs and sort of piecing them together. So, but yeah, we go way back with seeing the band when we were very young, much younger than now. And, I hopefully we get a chance to see you all again at some point.
Well, we hope so. We're looking at coming out again with luck in February next year.
Great.
Mick,
We'll be there.
What do you remember about that tour, Mick? Because that was quite a lineup. Was that a fun outing for you guys?
You know, it was marvelous because we're all mates. So we all got on great, you know, there was no egos there at all, you know, and we were swapping headlines, swap here, you do it tonight, you do it tomorrow, you know, and it was just a great feeling tour because, you know, everyone was pulling together and having a great time, you know, and it was a great evening of music for everyone. You know, I mean, we'd be playing and the other guys would be on the side of the stage and vice versa, you know, it was really cool. We loved it.
There are two things that really stand out from the show. One is you probably know this, but Steelin' had like sneaky big radio play in the Detroit market. It was huge. There were some stations here that played it all the time. And I didn't know it was Uriah Heep. And I think you played that song second in the set. So you opened with something and then that organ came in for Steelin'. And I was like, I love this song. And it's these guys. And that song brought the house down. What a great live song that is. Yeah. I know it's not on Demons and Wizards, but man, I love that song.
Yeah, it gets a great reaction everywhere in the world. You know, it just connects with people, which is marvelous. You know, you wish you could write them every day, but you can't.
And the other thing too, I got to say, Mick, is just your performance. I don't think I've ever seen a guy just have more fun on stage. I mean, you were engaging with the audience. You would have guessed it was your first ever gig, even though you'd been playing for, you know, years. And your performance was really memorable for me. This was back in the days. I think you had the great mustache. You know, you always had one of the great stashes.
One of the all-time great mustaches in rock and roll. No question.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that I've always had, and they become trademarks, don't they, to a degree?
Yeah,
but you just love. It looked like you loved what you do, and I've seen you play since. And you just
what I do today, you know, it's you know, you're on that stage and you feel at home, you know, and you know, Uriah Heep's always been a band that's communicating with the audience. You know, we've never been a band that, you know, we're up there, the audience are down here, and you know, and you should start applauding us when we want you to, you know, and all that business. You know, we want band and audience like this every night, you know, and we're all enjoying it as one. And we're having as much fun as them, and they're having as much fun as us. It's so important.
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt. And that was one of the big takeaways for sure. So Demons and Wizards, of course, starts out with the before mentioned song that I can't wait to talk about. It's truly one of my favorite songs of all time. And that is the opening, The Wizard. It's just a majestic opener. You know, it's almost a perfect song. It's got an introduction that sets the stage, but then it builds and builds and builds into this epic ending. What are your thoughts on it? Well,
it was the first song that we actually tuned the E string down to a D. And so we had that drone. So the intro's got that sort of drone effect to it. And I can remember, Ken was writing it in the back of a van. He just one day got in the back of the van and he's got his guitar out and he started playing this little figure. And I said, well, that's really interesting. I like that. And we kind of developed from there, really. But a number of things happened on that song. One of them is there's people will hear it and think it's a string sound on the first note over the introduction, which you'd get a synthesizer and just put your finger on the string sound and that would be it. It'd be recorded. But we were actually recording in the studio, Lansdowne Studios in London. And the control room was kind of here and next to it was the kitchen. And what happened was we were playing back the recorded version of The Wizard, and somebody had made a cup of tea in the kitchen and they had a whistle kettle. And when it boiled just over the intro. And so there was like this. And we went, that sounds great. So, of course, in those days, you made do with all these things and experimentation. We ran into the kitchen, recorded the kettle, very speeded it up to C, which is the key of the song, and put it on the front of the actual song. So it's actually a tea kettle whistle.
I had no idea that is an amazing story, Mick. I had no clue about that. I thought it was a synthesizer for sure.
No. We didn't have that access in those days. So you know, they're the sort of areas we went into when we were in the studio. You know, we do lots of things like singing harmonies with the piano lid up. So all the strings were resonating and stuff like that. We'd sing into a tom-tom and mic it underneath and get that particular voice sound, So you went into all these areas back then. But the Wizard was a kettle making a cup of tea, a whistle.
And this was Mark Clark was involved in this song. I think maybe the only song on the record, right?
Yeah, when Ken was writing it, he got stuck from middle eight, and Mark came on board with that, and it fit perfectly, And so he's got a credit for that. But then he didn't stay in the band very long after that because he looked at our touring schedule, which was immense, I might add.
Yeah,
we were doing 9 months on the road, 3 months in the studio, 9 months on the road. And some years, in 1972, we did 2 albums. We did the Dimmers and Wizards and Miss Jus's Birthday. So we were right at it. And Mark didn't think his health could take that. So he left after contributing to that song basically halfway through an American tour.
I don't know why. Well, I don't know why he was working. You guys were very healthy at the time, right? You were taking wonderful care of yourself, right?
Well, you know what? At that time, it was only drinking.
Right.
So, it hadn't got out of control by then. But, with those sort of schedules, the wheels started falling off, of course,
Yeah, sure.
And people were taking things just to get through the night. As John Lennon said, whatever gets you through the night.
That's right. That's right. Touring isn't always as glamorous or sexy as it looks from the outside, isn't it?
In those days, because like when you toured America, you flew everywhere. So, you'd have a late night and go down to the club and next minute, 2 hours later, you're being pushed towards a limo or van or whatever it is to get you to the airport to get the next gig, so it was tough. It was tough schedules, no tour buses,
I think very few people understand that, particularly at that time, there wasn't, a lot of the technology stuff that exists or ways to stay connected to friends or family or whatever it may be. So, you're on tour and it must just become a blur. I mean, literally the old cliche where you don't know what city you're in half the time.
100%. Yeah. To get from A to B and do the job, you've got people doing a lot of things for you, as well. So you lose a lot of skills in that department as well.
Right.
But, we got to the point where the success of Demons and Wizards, we went on to, the Lear jets and the whole floors of our hotels and bodyguards outside, it all got very silly, great fun, man.
Yeah. I'm sure there was a bit of fun. I'm sure there was.
Too much fun, to be honest.
Well, it's a glorious opener and it sets up, you mentioned earlier, your trademark wah-wah guitar sound. That certainly comes through on Traveler in Time. It's your classic sound here, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was a song that, I started writing and I had the riff and the wah-wah riff, if you like, sound to it and everything. And it was very quickly, we jumped on that and David came on board and we started piecing together. And it was one of those songs that came together very, very quickly in the rehearsals, and it's a great little song. I really enjoy it. And we played it on, even with this lineup, we played it on stage and it goes down tremendously well,
Have you guys done the thing yet where you've toured and played the album top to bottom? Have you guys done that with Demons and Wizards?
Twice. We did Demons and Wizards in a festival in England, in London, and we did I think it was 2 nights, might have been 4, in Japan.
Would you ever do that on a current tour? Would you ever have one of the sets be the record start to finish?
Well, it's only 40 minutes long, so
right.
We don't, I don't know. If I explained as well, because I'm not a slide player and can play some slide on some of these songs we'll get to, we actually got, when we went to Japan, we had Mickey Moody from Whitesnake come up and do that with us, who's an old friend. He used to, in the old days prior to Heep, I used to be in a band called Spice, and he was in a band called Tramline. And our first meeting together, he said to me, "How did you get your stage name, Box?" I said, "Well, it's my family name." And he went, "Oh." I said, "Well, how did you get yours, Moody? Because that's a good rock and roll name." He said, "That's my family name too."
Oh, really?
At first, they're laughing. We both thought they were contrived.
Right. That's funny.
That's great. That's great. Well, yeah.
Well, then obviously you were born to be a rock and roller. I think that's the bottom line, right?
Thank goodness for that, eh?
That's right.
It is a great rock and roll name, I got to say. No doubt about it. Speaking of great rock and roll names, track 3, is it a boogie? Is it a metal song? Is it a classic rock song? Who cares? It's Easy Living. It's one of the more interesting hit singles, I would say, in rock history, because it's driving, it's fast, it's got this boogie, it's very short. Were you set out to create something up tempo and boogie, or like, where did this song come from?
Where it originated was we were getting back to those schedules we were on. I mean, we did, for instance, we did a tour of England, and we traveled for the night, went in the studio, worked through the night, then left the studio and got a plane to Chicago to start another 3-month tour. So it shows you the sort of pressure and thing and that we were under. And on one of those journeys in the car, we were laughing, saying, "Well, this is easy living," right? Which was a joke on it, you know. And Ken sort of remembered that. And so when we were in the studio, I can remember we went out for a few beers, like you do, for a break to clear your head or mess it up, whatever way it went. And then we came back in the studio and he's sitting at the organ. We went, "Let's have it." And that was it, you know, put together very quickly. Just through that one comment, which was a joke on the fact that this is easy living, because it certainly wasn't. You know, we were spent. Yeah. I mean, I remember when we got to Chicago, after all that, traveling through the night, working in the studio, flying to Chicago. We got to Chicago, we met the record company. The record company said, "Oh, we've got a load of press and we're going to go out for a dinner and all that stuff." And we're going, "No, all we'll do is go to bed." But what happened was, you know, the 2 or 3 of us fell asleep in our food. And then, you know, the press being the press, they said, "Oh, well, Uriah Heep on drugs."
Yeah, of course.
Right. We were just burnt out.
Yeah. Do you ever, you know, getting a bit older now myself, I find myself doing a lot of the, you know, when I was your age stuff to the youth of today, you know, and the you know, accusing them of being wimps and all these type of things. Do you ever kind of look at the music scene today and just kind of say, "Man, you guys have no idea how hard you used to have to work at this," because you guys are a blue collar, like, get your hands dirty, tour your ass off operation. And nowadays, you know, you get these music projects that can, like, sit in their basement and put fake performances on YouTube and become famous. Yeah, exactly. Whereas, you know, you guys had to really cut your teeth the old fashioned way. I mean, is that
in the van up and down the country? You know, putting all the gig money into the fuel tank to get to the next gig. I was lucky that I'm relatively short.
Right.
I could sleep in the PA column.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a tough, but I mean, it was so much fun. You know, it was great. You never saw it as tough, although when you look back, it was. You know, and you really went through the mill sort of thing. But it was just great. You know.
I kind of feel like the bands of today are missing out on that experience. You know,
just an example of guitars. The entry level on guitars is amazing now. You can buy one very cheaply and it plays brilliantly. In our day, you just bought what you could buy, and you didn't even know how to set it up. Yeah. You know, if you broke a string, you know, nowadays, you know, put a set on for me. Now, you know, you break a string, you search around and buy one string from somewhere. There used to be a place where me and Richie Blackmore used to go in London called Clifford Essex, and we could go and buy banjo strings and separate strings and stuff like that. And so you just put one string on, and then you'll find when you're playing the guitar, all the others are dead, and you got one string really bright, so you don't control the heat of your hand to dampen that down with the rest of them,
Right. That's real. That's real rock and roll right there, baby.
Yeah, people used to boil the strings in a saucepan, to clean them up and put them back on again.
Right.
Yeah.
Never do that now. The people never go that.
Now artists, quote unquote artists, push a button and a guitar plays.
Exactly right. Seeing there's a machine that helps them.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Mick, were you guys surprised at the commercial success of Easy Living, or when you guys recorded it, heard the masters, were you feeling like this was going to be a big hit for you guys?
Always thought it was a good rock song. No more. We said it represented us harmony-wise. It had the energy that we were looking to put in a 3-minute song, and a lovely middle eight. And we actually put some tubular bells on the middle eight, which was quite unique to us. I think only because they were in the studio at the time. Do that.
Did Mike Oldfield leave him behind?
Because he was on the label with Jerry Brown, I believe, as well.
Yeah,
his sister was Sally Oldfield, so it could have been left there from him. Yeah, and we knew it was good, but we didn't know. You never know how things are going to take off. And you write a song in your bedroom, and then present to the band, and if it gets through that, then it gets recorded, then it's really, it throws out to everyone, and see what happens. But that just took off like a Bondi train, as they say in Australia.
Yeah, we were actually talking last week. We did an episode on Leftoverture by Kansas. And we were talking about their Carry On Wayward Son, and how like that song was like the last one that they had in the session, and it was a throwaway, and they wrote it in 7 minutes and all that. It seems like, to your point about Easy Living, sometimes the songs that end up being the most sort of classic or renowned are the ones that actually got the least.
Well, you don't want to think them. You're just doing it on impulse because it sounds great. Oh, this is great. And you're off. Yeah. And as you say, it works, I remember the story in Wayward Song when he was just playing a little guitar thing he used to do as an exercise, and somebody said, "Oh, that's good."
Right? Yeah, that was like "Sweet Child of Mine," the Slash riff.
Yeah.
It was his warm up, and he just said, "Let's make a song out of this."
Yeah.
Track 4 is one of the quintessential album tracks from Demons and Wizards. It just encapsulates everything great about the album, and that is "Poet's Justice."
Silver street. Find my love, or let me dream.
Yeah, Mick, it's your guitar tone, that distortion that you use, mixed with the organ. I think that's just such a key part of the sound.
Big Heep sound there, and it was always trying to find the right inversions where they're not bothering each other, so you get the extra power. Although we never talked about it, we just did it subconsciously, you play it there, you just did it. But it gave the overall Heep sound. It was a song that I started writing. In fact, I had that chord sequence, and then it got a bit funky.
Yeah.
One of the things, Mick, that I love about your guitar play, I'm a guitar player myself, is, you see a lot of particularly guitar players from this era where they could really play lead and shred and go quick and all that. But then you ask them to play a groove or a rhythm or to your point, funk it up a little bit, and they don't know how. The way you were able to both kind of capture lead with all the different moves and speeds and all those things that obviously you can do so well, but your ability to play rhythm guitar effectively and use those kind of dead notes that you have on Poet's Justice to create that groove, those are, I think, the best and most special guitar players are the ones that can really do both. It's sort of like, Angus Young can go up there and do this all day, but as far as playing a rhythm, he could hardly do it, so he needed Malcolm to do it, right? Right, yeah, exactly. You have that ability to do both, which I think is really, really great as far as being an influential guitar player.
Well, my take on the whole thing is that the song's king. do things for the song that enhance it. I mean, just because I've learned a lick in the morning somewhere that sounds fantastic, I'm not going to apply it there just for the sake of it. And I think a lot of people overplay it and just don't listen to the actual what's going on in the song. And I think, solo, if it requires that, then that's great. I'll be the first one up there doing it. For instance, like Salisbury, when we had that 27-piece brass and woodwind section, and I had 3 very long solos. That's great because it had its part and its point. But you don't want to do that everywhere. I mean, so many people overplay. It takes away from the melody and everything else. And also, foremost, I'm a songwriter, so the song is so important to me, and whatever I do embellishes that song and helps it along, not hinders it or takes you out another direction.
That's a great point, and I think that's part of why Demons and Wizards work so well. And you mentioned it earlier, too, the lack of ego that you guys had cohesively. And when you put the song first, beyond the performance or beyond, you see, to your point about overplaying, you see a lot of guitar players that just want to go center stage and show their chops rather than support the song. And that's, that's exactly, I think, why your composition and you guys as a collective worked, is because you put the importance of the song before any of the performance stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the song's got to speak correctly and to everyone and connect with everyone. A bit of guitar playing over the top, unless you're one of these virtuoso guitarists, of course, like Yngwie Malmsteen, maybe,
Right, yeah.
He might throw a few notes in there.
Right, yeah, exactly. When that's your move, right.
But that's his thing, and it's built around that, so that's great. But, as far as we're concerned, it's always been melody and lyrics are more important than anything else, Everything else is supportive.
I do really like there's the moment where you and Ken both have those little breaks where you just do a little fill and you do this like Robert Fripp, kind of up and down deal. Yeah. Fripp would have been very proud of that little guitar break, I think.
Well, it's quite funny with Robert Fripp because he's from the Andover area, which is the south part of England. And we used to play the marquee and as Spice, not Heep. And our manager at the time was Paul Newton, our bass player at the time, his father. And he used to drive Robert Fripp up to come and see us play, funny enough.
Really? Wow. That's cool. Yeah.
And then I never heard any more from him. And then I went down to a club in Hampstead Heath in London and saw the King Crimson and the 21st Schizoid Man and went, what?
Didn't we all?
And also, it was a small club, and they had strobes with it. So,
wow,
fantastic riff of the strobes going. I mean, it was just an experience,
Yeah, I was once having a conversation with Adrian Ballou, and I said, "Is Fripp as like weird as he seems?" And Ballou was like, "Yeah, he is."
Well, when we got John Wetton in the band, he was out in America in Miami actually with Crimson, and it was all falling to bits for him out there with that, or so he thought. Which is why we poached him into us, because at the time we were needing a bass player. And, quite often we were running into Robert, because Robert is from the same era of Bournemouth that John was on the coast of England, that John Wetton and Lee were from. So they were great camaraderie, but he was a very straight-laced guy,
Yeah.
Power to him, he kept on it, and he was come up with some dynamite stuff,
Absolutely. I'm a big Crimson fan.
That's for sure.
I just saw a trailer. There's a movie coming out, a documentary about the band that Fripp is guiding, and a lot of interviews with him. I can't wait to see it.
Oh, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, it will. It'll be captivating for sure.
Absolutely. John Lawton just passed away recently, didn't he? He did, yeah. It was a dreadful shock because it was he wasn't ill. Yeah. He just dropped down one morning. And it was just an awful thing. It was a real shame, really, because I had a few things that I'd been writing that I thought, well, John will sing these brilliantly, and one of those things I never got round to, approaching him for it. But yeah, and you guys had done some things together. I know you had been on stage together a few times over the years. Together. We did a New Year's show in Bulgaria out in the freezing cold.
which was hilarious. Because we were, it was freezing. So we've got coats on and everything like that. And I'm down the bottom of the stage and I kept telling him, can you get a tune? As long as you just keep my guitar in tune. And just as he walked up the stairs, he said to me, oh, yeah, Mick, it's a semitone down. You got to I sing everything a semitone down. So I'm going, jeez. So I got back down to the bottom, he went, doing like that. No, Mick Box. I went, I'm in the lap of the gods here, and luckily it went great. It was fantastic. We went down absolutely stalled, but that was frightening. Yeah. But I've done a lot with John. I've done a lot of concerts with him. His depth for Heep when Bernie was having some throat problems and some illness problems he had to deal with. And I did a film with him. We did a film for Miramar Films.
Love.net.
We loved it. Yeah. So we did that together, and that was just a laugh a minute at the end. It was fantastic.
He was definitely one of the greats. There's no doubt about it. Well, the first side, if you're listening on vinyl, concludes with a very dramatic. This is where things get kind of slowed down. A dramatic tune here with "Circle of Hands." What's your reflections on this one, Mick?
Oh, that's a pretty bad, mate.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Be back. Well, funny enough, we were in Italy and we'd all had a lot to drink. And I think it was Ken said we should all do a seance together. All being stupid. We went, yeah, all right, there's something to do tonight. We got a night off in Rimini, wherever it was. And so we started this seance, with a glass in the middle of the table and all these things. And I think it was getting a bit serious. It became from a joke to a seriousness. And I think somebody said, show us you're in the room or something. I think something fell off the mantelpiece. And we went, hang on. This is bigger than all of us. We shouldn't be delving here. So we got out. But because of that experience, then Circle of Hands was Cold Spirit's plan. It was written basically from that seance. And it's a great song. It's got a lot of power to it. I love the harmony guitars in the middle and the slide at the end is wonderful from Ken. So, yeah, it's got a lot of gospelly vocal, which I like as too, the harmonies, the oohs, they've got a lovely vib to them, which is very gospelly, which is great. Love it.
Great description, too, of track 6, Rainbow Demon. I wanted to ask you about those vocal harmonies because this certainly has those as well. Track 6, Rainbow Demon.
No one dared to stand in his way, possessed by some distant calling, riding on through night and
day. Yeah, baby. But yeah, the chorus lifts into this. What is that vocal harmony that you guys developed? And it's so tight.
Just a 3-part tight harmony. But the good thing about it, or the thing we really emphasised with the vibrato of each note. I mean, we really pushed it to the limit, and I think it gave it character. And I think also it was the first time I'd actually put the lead guitar through the Leslie cabinet.
Yes. So that's what's creating that drone.
It's almost like the guitar's playing the organ, if you like.
It's so much low end. If you listen to it on headphones, it's so
big. It's big. Yeah. And it's very atmospheric. And the fact that David starts down in his boots, down there, and then so when we hit the chorus, as you're saying, it's got impact, and it's good. So we play it quite often on stage. We bring it in and out of the set, even with this lineup we have now, and it's always powerfully received. It's not a song that just powers at you. It just has this real, I don't know the word evil, but it's got that atmosphere.
Yeah, it's like a slow mover. Yeah.
And then when we hit those harmonies, it's bang.
Yeah. It kind of creeps up on you nicely.
It does. Yeah.
So Ken, you and Ken were in Spice before Heep, right?
I was in. Me and David Byron were.
Okay.
before, yeah.
Okay.
And we sort of took Spice into the studio, and that was a 4-piece. And when we started hearing our original songs back through the speakers, I was a big Vanilla Fudge fan. And I felt we needed some keyboards to enhance it, give it a nice colour. And I was a big Mark Stein fan from the Vanilla Fudge because he was just fantastic. I mean, the thing about Fudge in those days, well, they used to do a lot of cover songs, didn't they? But they did them so well theatrically. And I thought, well, that's kind of where we're at, you know. So the hammered organ I also thought was a great instrument for us because it can be romantic, it can be very aggressive, it could fit in grooves, it could do every nuance we want to go with our music. It would fit in. So.
Yeah, so that organ as sort of a layer, Ken had already been doing that before you guys started the project.
He'd actually been playing it, you know, in that style. So, you know, I saw the Gods at the Marquee with Lee Kerslake playing drums, Ken on keyboards, and Paul Newton on bass. So it ended up to be an amalgamation of those two bands that became Uriah Heep.
Yeah, it's great.
The next song is a Mick Box penned, or at least you had a part in it. It was a co-write, so collaborative spirit here. But I have a feeling this riff came from you, Mick, and that is the riff for the very catchy All My Life. Very classic rock sound. A little poppy, though, I would say, too. Just very catchy with the vocal line and the riff.
Funky again, I think.
Getting funky with it.
Must have been going through a funky phase.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it was written very quickly in rehearsals. I had that riff, and it just grew from there, you know, and it was all based around a D chord. So you had all those progressions up and down that we could play. And then we decided to get Ken to play some slide on it. And David started writing down some lyrics, and it came really quick.
Is this one that's still in the repertoire? It seems like it'd be a good live song.
We have, especially the end. The end is a great groove, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and the vocals get higher, and it gets very intense. We have had it in that for a while, but not of late.
So the conclusion of the album is, for me, as the progressive rock guy, I'm like, the Paradise and the Spell to me is one song together, a 12-minute epic. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but they run into each other, you know, almost perfectly. Do you consider this one piece, or is these two separate songs? How should you
now consider it as one?
Yeah. Well, you know, I certainly consider it one song. So let's talk about the conclusion of Demons and Wizards with Paradise and the Spell.
I used to love I can't remember the song now, The Small Faces, that phasing. But anyway, it's a great phasing song, a phasing sound. And we thought, hang on, well, let's use that to integrate the two songs together. And then, you know, one can grow out of this. And it was a great, once we hit on it and we got the right phase, it was like magic, you know, we thought, wow, this is brilliant. And then it became one song.
I do have to imagine for a listener in 1972 hearing that phasing, because that was a newish idea back then.
It was a very newish idea, but we started from The Small Faces, to be honest.
Yeah, but you nailed it. I mean, it must have sounded very futuristic and really cosmic. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just fit the song as well, you know, so well, you know. It went into that spacey sort of feel, you know, it was great, yeah.
And I really like how the Spell, you know, it does that bookend thing that us proggers love. You know, it kind of ends with the original riff and kind of comes back full circle. But really epic moment, I think. And again, some people do see this as a prog rock album, and Paradise and the Spell to me would be that moment, you know?
Yeah, no, I can see that, you know, and whenever we performed it, I really loved it. You know, it's got, again, it's a drop D on the acoustic, but it's so gentle and it's got a feel about it that the rest of the album hasn't got anything on. So it stands out quite well, apart from being two songs into one. I just think it just and it's storytelling again, which is good, which I like. I mean, Ken's he was a master at that, lyrically telling a story that you go with him, and it's great. I loved it.
Did he write the lyrics on Demons and Wizards for the most part?
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we had parts in various songs. My songs, of course, I had an input, but generally, if it's his song, it was him. Yeah, he did it all. Yeah, we might have said, "Oh, cut that," and as you do as musicians, well, that's going on a bit. Let's take 4 bars out, please, before we fall asleep.
Right.
Let's do this, do that. But generally, he wrote a lot of the lyrics. I mean, he was a great lyricist. It was, he's responsible when you look at it for that fantasy, lyrical content that we were very known for, that other people took off us in the end. Which is great.
Yeah, when that works, it really works. And that's, I kind of mentioned earlier that you feel like this is not a blatant concept record, but that the feel of it is conceptual and consistent. And you feel like it's a story, whether it be musically or lyrically. And sometimes when you get that consistent lyrical approach, along with a musical approach that obviously it's not uniformed, and it's not, like too much the same, but it's certainly consistent. I think that's what makes the album special.
What was good about it was the fact that the songs that Ken didn't really have any active writing in terms of lyrical content fit the whole thing as well. So unconsciously, it all came together.
Right.
I think because at that time, with the new blood, if you call it, with Lee and Gary, we were all just totally focused. We had no diversions in our life at all. It was just. That was it, and I think we benefited with that.
Mick, I cannot tell you how amazing it's been to talk about this record with you. If you could just conclude with some general reflections when you think about this era of the band and this record, just what memories come up. You've been able to share so many of them, but what are your just general thoughts on the album as a whole?
Generally when we were doing it, because like I told about the whistle thing with the kettle and everything, it was very experimental. Everybody was just so focused on everything we were doing. It was really good fun to do, and none of it seemed a chore. It was every day you couldn't wait to get in there and do something, and it was great. It was a great feeling. And like I say, with Lee and Gary and as a rhythm section, the engine was complete, and we just got on with it, and it was great. And luckily we were allowed to get on with it as well. We didn't have any intrusions from record companies or anything, or producers trying to push us in this direction, that direction. Everything we came up with was used, and it was fantastic.
That's a big part of this. I'm glad you mentioned that, because this was a time where record labels trusted their artists. They really did. There was not that interference that you get nowadays, and they gave you guys the ability to make this what you wanted it to be as the artist. That's got to be a big part of the story.
It was that time, you see. I mean, I'll give you another example. When we recorded Salisbury, we decided, although it's a very long track, we decided to have a 27-piece brass and woodwind section on it. And we went to the management and said, look, we think this would really work and make it very orchestrated and everything else. And next week, we had John Fiddy, the conductor. We're in there recording it all. The next week, it was amazing. Now, if I went to our management now or any other band that had those ideas and those aspirations, they go along and they go, okay, we'll have to talk with the accountant, and then we'll talk with the manager, and then we'll talk with the record company, and we'll talk with the record company's accountant and all that to see if we'll sell enough units to do it.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
Or we'll give you this square thing with 5 buttons on it, and it sounds just like an orchestra, right? Yeah.
There you go. But, that's what was so good about that time. As I said, you got signed to 7 albums and you grew with the label grew with you, and they let you get on with it. With Heep, that was a great thing, because we put our toe in hard rock, we put our toe in folk music, we put our toe in jazz, we put our toe in progressive rock, over the years. We kind of did it all, we still do to this day. It's very important. We got a new album we just recorded. and we just listened to the mixes come over from Jay Ruston, their producer from LA, and it sounded fantastic. But there's quite a lot of progressive stuff on there as well, which you'll like.
All right. Yes. Love it. Can't wait to hear it.
You'll get at least one good review. I can guarantee you that.
Yes. Oh, that's great. That's great news, Mick. Do you have a release date in mind or anything yet for that?
Unfortunately, with all what's going on, because we have to go on tour our 50th anniversary, albeit 2 years late.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
And that starts in September, so we've got to sort of complete that, and then I think the record company decide when to release it. You know, it's like they look at it as a product that they can sell at the best possible time to get the revenue that they're looking for.
That's right. Exactly.
And we have that because we signed the contract and they allowed us to go and do it, which is great. One funny thing I have to tell you about Gary.
Yeah, please.
It's funny for me with Gary Thane because he finished the studio session and I went out to get my car and I just bought a Jaguar or something. I'm not into cars, XJ6 or something. Everybody else was getting rollers. I said, I can't do that. I'll be sitting like this. Get out and go to the shops. I'm sorry, I can't do it. So I got this Jag anyway, which I thought was okay. Still a bit flash, but still okay on the flash side. And I came out and I was going to give Gary a lift home. Now, Gary was a bit the worse for wear. And I said to him, and I put my bag down and had the keys in it. And Gary didn't drive. And I went back to the studio to pick up what I'd missing. I can't remember what I was missing and picked it up and came back. There's no Gary, no car, no bag.
Oh boy.
And he's completely out of his noggin, right? Driving around, and it was like a cul-de-sac. So he's going around and like, I'm going, no.
Run away.
He came to the front of the studio, like with the wheels up on the curb, you know. And I got him out, come out.
Yeah, I'm just glad you found a way to stop him. That's a victory. Right?
Runaway Gary. Wow.
Gary had this really gruff voice as well, and he go, "Oh, okay, Mick, that's great fun. I love that."
Let's do it again. Yeah.
Gonna crash it. Yeah.
Oh, that is great. Oh, that's great. Wow.
Well, I want to say really quick too that in addition to obviously loving this album, I am a huge fan of the live record, the January 1973.
Oh yeah.
And let it be known that long before Spinal Tap, you had the Black Album cover on that live record.
Black Album.
That's right. You guys were there first.
That album was the inspiration for Kiss with their live albums as well. We had to emulate that because it was so good. Yeah. Which is
it captures you guys at that time really well. It's a great live.
The thing was, we were booked for I think 3 or 4 shows on an English tour, and I think we did 2 or 3 of them, and they were absolute rubbish. Not for the band, but a microphone had fallen off the bass drum. This had fallen off here. The mobile truck, and recorded something. There's always something going wrong. You're going, oh, we'll never do it. We got to Birmingham Town Hall in England, and it was the smallest stage of all of them, very compact, kind of circular like this, and we were just stacked across the stage. And from note 1 to the end, it was perfect. And nowadays people they say it's my live album, but they've spent another year in the studio making it not live.
Oh yeah.
And with us, that's totally untouched from first note to last note.
That's awesome.
That's cool to hear because you're right. A lot of those get touched up. That's really good to hear.
Oh man, I've heard live albums. You go, come on.
Oh yeah, it's more than a touch up. They're getting overdubbed like crazy.
Yeah, vocals look, they're all cutting off at the right time, and there's 50 of them when there's only 4 people on stage.
Mick, where are you living now?
I live in London.
You're in London, okay.
Farmers Green. I've had a bit of a run around really because I started in the East End of London and then moved out to, I think it was Loughton, in Essex area. And then I went to Chicago for a while. And then I moved down to Las Cruces in New Mexico for a while, then back to London. Then I spent about 8 years in Sydney, Australia.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
which was really lovely. And then I came back to London, and then I'm in North London, which is great.
That's great. Yeah, I'm sure you were in Australia before it went completely crazy, as it has the last.
100%. Also, at a time when you could guarantee that the weather would always be beautiful, you can't do that now.
Yeah, right.
You know, people think, oh, we're going to go to Australia for Christmas and leave all the snow behind. They get there and it's not so nice.
Right.
Surprise, surprise, not a lot of money.
Well,
That's
Mick,
great.
we cannot thank you enough. We hope that you'll make it back to Detroit. When you do, you'll be on stage. You'll see two 40-something twins rocking out. And all we want is one of your trademark thumbs ups at us. Just give us.
I'll tell you what, we'll meet up for a drink before that.
Beautiful.
Mick, we would love nothing more, man. That would be so great.
Get all my details from whoever set this together. I think Duff did.
We will make sure and do that. That would be great fun. And I promised myself I would say this, but thank you, Mick Box, for always being very heavy and very humble.
Thank you. Oh, no, maybe. We are looking at February next year. They're trying to put it together. It'd be Uriah Heep, Saxon, Diamond Head.
Oh, wow. We'll be at that.
Which will be nearly 100 years of classic rock and metal on that one stage in one night.
Yep. Oh, that's great.
When we did Judas Priest, it was great as well.
Yeah. Well, when you come back to Detroit, we will be there, and we'll arrange that. If you are up for it, we would love to meet you for a drink before. That'd be great.
No problem at all. Happy days.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, Mick, and take care of yourself, man. Hopefully we'll see you again.
We got everything you need. Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mick.
I don't know how to get out of this. Where's my dog?
Just hit the red button.
Hit the red button that says leave, I think, on the lower.
Oh, hey, buddy.
Oh, there you go.
He's an English setter, and his name's Domino.
Nice. Beautiful.
Hello, baby boo. All right, guys.
See you, man.
See you, Mick. Thanks.
Dinner.
Well, T, I mean, I can't just want to be Mick Box. Is he not the greatest guy or what?
I thoroughly enjoyed our time in the box. That was fantastic.
He's like such a happy rock star.
Yeah. You know? I want to be that when I don't want to say his age, but when I'm that age.
Well, and I started by saying, I mean, the guy looks like $1 million. You know, he looks great. He sounds great. He reflects wonderfully on his career. I mean, I just kind of want to be him. You know,
I think he's a good example of a guy who worked hard, played hard, and lived to tell about it. Thank goodness.
Sounds like somebody else I know. You.
Well, I haven't lived to tell about it yet, but let's hope I do.
Well, we want to thank Mick Box so much for taking time to join us here in Two Twins in an Album. That was an absolute blast. So thanks a bunch, Mick. And we are going to take him up on that offer to not only go see Uriah Heep, of course, when they come back, but to have that beer.
If he thinks that was a token offer, he's wrong. We're gonna make that happen.
Exactly. Well, I'm gonna make a token offer to you, T, right now to say, hey, tell me 3 songs you've been listening to lately as we get into what is in your head.
Yeah, Dolores.
Dolores doing some rapping. She belonged on the Super Bowl halftime show there. You know,
so she did not live to tell the tale, did she?
Yeah, correct. All right, T, 3 songs ringing in your head in the last week. What do you got?
Well, Urge Overkill came out with a new album, and it's called Oui. That's French, you know.
Yes.
And the first track on it is a song called Freedom. And you pop it in and you just sort of expect to hear Urge Overkill's lead track from their new record. I think it's their first in 10 years or something. And you get about 45 seconds into it and you realize that you're hearing the Wham cover, Freedom.
Really?
Have you heard this?
No.
It's like kind of just odd and fantastic because you don't really realize it at first. And then the lyrics kick in, the vocal line kicks in, and you're like, is this the Wham song? And it is. So, maybe they were big fans of George Michael. Maybe it's a bit of a tribute. You know, when we had Eddie the King on, he didn't say anything about them doing a Wham song, you know?
No.
It's like, where were you on that one, King? That would have been nice to know. That would have been a good Two Twins in an album exclusive that Urge Overkill is going to kick off its record with a Wham track.
Does the rest of the album rock? Is it, should I pick it up? I haven't gotten it
I
yet.
couldn't get past the Wham song. I really haven't absorbed it yet, but soon enough. The second is a track by the Black Crowes on a record, maybe something we should talk about at some point, but it's very debatable what their best record is. This is a track off of Amorica, and it's called She Gave Good Sunflower, which just rocks. Sometimes those guys they went wide open, sixth gear, rolling down the highway.
You think it's debatable? Their best album? I don't think there's any debate.
Well, I mean, some would say Southern Harmony, some would say Amorica, certainly, and some would say Lions, one of my albums of the year. So yeah, I think there's a bit of a debate there. I mean, is that an easy one for you?
It's easy. It's Lions all the way. That will always be my favorite Crowes album.
Well, I know that, and you know that, but I don't think everyone else knows that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And last, I'm going to go with a little shout out to Lieutenant Frank Drebin here with Herman's Hermits. Been listening to their greatest hits collection, and I'm into Something Good, which is also a great montage from The Naked Gun, Lieutenant Frank Drebin. So that's it for me. What's in your head, buddy?
3 songs for me. First is The Fire Theft, which is Sunny Day Real Estate minus a guitarist and under a different name. This was an album from the early 2000s and the song Heaven, one of my favorite songs of all time. Got that one going this week. Second is Resurrection Band's Summer Throw from the album Lament, one of the really underrated albums of the 1990s. And then I got to say,
that's a great record by Res Band. It really is.
Certainly is. Yeah. And I probably listened to the song 20 times in the last couple of weeks. And that is REO Speedwagon's I Can't Fight This Feeling. I've been obsessed with the pre-choruses of that song, just trying to figure out like musically kind of how they stumbled upon those. Cause I think it's just one of the best pre-choruses of all time. So I Can't Fight This Feeling. Well, I would love to sing it at karaoke, but it's a little high. It's a little high for me.
Well, we do this one when we hopefully still do our acoustic shows. And for me, Nub, that one definitely gets tuned down to E flat.
Yeah. But the whole section of Even As I Wonder, I just love that. And then I'm getting closer than it's so anthemic, dude. It's
gorgeous.
Like, how do you not get into that?
No question.
So yeah, that is what is in my head. Episode 70 was a memorable one. We once again want to thank Mick Box. I want to thank you, T, for joining us from really across the country. We had a large geographic range represented on today's show. Mick Box in London and you far away from where I am.
That's true. We did. Well, hey, buddy, it's almost like we were all in the room together, wasn't it? Through the miracles of modern technology, right?
You got it. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And we ask, as always, that you take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And we will see you for episode 71 here on Two Twins and an Album.
Two twins and an album.
Well, that's about it. That's all we have. I hope it wasn't too disappointing. We will see you on tour. Until then, take it easy.